Hey guys, good morning. In preparation for your quiz on Friday, I want to make sure that you get a chance to go over these bell ringer questions with me. So, number one, write the equation of the line in fully simplified slope intercept form. So, we definitely want y equals mx plus b when we finish. So, we're going to need to know the slope and in the most simplified form and our y-intercept from our graph. So I always start with y-intercept. Our y-intercept is where our line is crossing the y-axis. This is at 0, 5 is the ordered pair, but we're just going to use the 5 for the y to plug in for b in our slope-intercept form. So let me go ahead and do that. Y equals mx plus b, plugging in 5 right there for our y-intercept. Now I'm going to look for our slope, which is always rise over run. So you can use any of the points that Delta Math gives you, and you can rise, so that's up or down. So I'm going to have to go down 2 units to get in line with this next box, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I went down 2 and to the right 5 to give me a negative slope of 2/5. And it is negative. I can check. A capital letter N has the same slope, steepness, slantiness as a negative line. It is falling from left to right. So it is negative, really important, negative 2/5. Let me fill in the rest of our slope intercept form with the y equals negative 2/5 x plus 5. A lot of students will forget the x there. So that is your final answer. Then y equals negative 2/5 x plus 5. If you had chosen points that were further apart, like let's say from that 5 y-intercept, and you chose way over here on the right, you would travel down 1, 2, 3, 4, and then over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I went down 4 and to the right 10, which also simplifies to negative 2/5. So it really doesn't matter which points you use, how far apart they are, but regardless, in the end, make sure it's in the most simplified fraction form. Y equals negative 2/5 x plus 5, number 1. Number 2, which of the following equations does the graph below represent? You've got multiple choice here. Let me label those as we talk. This is going to be A, B will go over to C, and down to D. Now, these answer choices are all in standard form. AX plus BY equals C. That's standard form for a linear function. We don't love it as much as slope-intercept form, because slope-intercept form, you can just look at it and there's the slope and there's the y-intercept. Standard form gives us x-intercepts and y-intercepts with a little bit of solving. So if you want to find your x-intercept, you would let your y value equal 0. So let's look at our x-intercept first and see if we can narrow down some answer choices. Our x-intercept on the x-axis is over here. Here's our x-intercept. And that is at negative 7. Negative 7, 0, actually, is our ordered pair there. Negative 7. So I'm going to go through here with our answer choices and plug in 0 for y and see if I get a x value of negative 7. So in A, if I plug in 0 for 7, or sorry, 0 for y, what happens? 7 times 0 is 0. So it goes away and you end up with this little baby equation, 3x equals 21. Divide by the 3, x equals positive 7. Close, but we were looking for negative 7, right? So I don't think it's A. Let's check out B. If I plug in 0 for y, that'll be gone. 7 times 0 is 0. And I've got, oh man, x equals 21. Ooh, a little too big. C, if I plug in 0 for y, 7 times 0 is gone. And for C, we're left with negative 3x equals 21. Divide by the negative 3 on both sides. Yes, here we are. X equals negative 7. That'll work. I'm going to eyeball. Ooh, D. D has the same thing. Negative 3x equals 21 when I divide. I'm also going to get a negative 7. Okay, so I know it's not A or B. We're going to just focus on C and D there. So second thing I need to check is my y-intercept. Now, I'm jumping right here to D and look at that. Our y-intercept of 21? I don't think so. Y-intercept right here, that is 0, 3. It's a 3. So let me go back up to C. Let's double check C here. If I want a y-intercept, I'm going to let x equal 0. So if I do negative 3 times 0 plus 7y equals 21, negative 3 times 0 is 0. Divide both sides by 7. Y equals positive 3. Yes. So C is our correct answer. I'm going to cross out that box for sure. Answer choice C. Now, the other thing you can do is use the calculator. Might be a little time consuming because you would be graphing each of them. So what I recommend is at least narrow it down to 1 or 2 answers if you feel like you're going to have to rely on the calculator. And then you could use the calculator to check. So I'm going to grab the calculator and let's graph answer choice C and just confirm that this is our matching graph. So on your TI Inspire calculator, a couple things. Left side, it's got scratch pad where you have the choices to calculate and graph. And that sounds great. Yes, a scratch pad. I just need to do a little work. Avoid Scratchpad. I don't know how to explain it to you, but I've seen Scratchpad do weird things. It rounds and it graphs weird, and like just awkward things happen in Scratchpad. Plus, it's a lot harder to clear things on your Scratchpad, like delete them. And so then it's bogging down your memory and killing your battery. So always go to a new document. We are going to graph answer choice C. So number 2, add graphs. All right, so it's got f1 of x equals. That's essentially saying y equals. And guess what? We're working with standard form. Our equations are not in y equals. Now, you could rearrange your standard form equation so it did say y equals, but you're just adding some more work. Instead, let's go to menu and graph entry edit, and let's change it instead of a function y equals, let's change it to a relation. And we can type in any equation, any form. So negative 3x plus 7y equals, your equals is under your control over here, 21. And enter, and it'll graph it. And that sure does look like a match to our provided graph. So answer choice C is golden. On number 3, we've got at the beginning of spring, Michaela planted a small sunflower in her backyard. The graph below represents the sunflower's height in inches after X weeks. What does the slope of the line represent? So make sure you're reading these questions closely. They do change. So slope is always like a rate. And so let's see what kind of answer choices we have. I'm going to label them so we can talk about them. A says the sunflower's height when it was planted. When it was planted, like when it started, that sure sounds like a y-intercept type of description. B, the flower's final height. That actually sounds like something way off in the distance that I will possibly never know. And it is definitely some y value. But we need the slope. C, the rate of change. I'm loving that. Rate of change in the sunflower's height over time. That's our y value over our x value. Rise over run. Yes, loving it. D says the sunflower's height after 1 week. That would relate to maybe the point 122. That's a place on our graph. So best choice is C. The rate of change in the sunflower's height over time is what the slope would represent in the context of this problem. Read those carefully. Sometimes these are hard for students to decipher. And lastly, number 4, Nathaniel's going to use a computer at an internet cafe. The cafe charges an initial fee, love those words, to use the computer and then an additional price per minute of usage. An equation represents the total cost of using the computer for T minutes at the internet cafe using this beautiful function. What is the y-intercept of the equation and what does it mean in the context of the problem? So they've got it a little funky. Rewriting it here, I can see that they've got 1/10 or 10/100, however you want to read that decimal, t at the end. And that's my rate. So this was my slope with my variable, meaning the 9 is our y-intercept. So it's a little bit different from our slope-intercept form. It's got some commutative property going on. They've just switched the order here. Our rate with our variable t, the 9 is our y-intercept. So 9 is the y-intercept. And then what does it mean? Well, reading through it, there was an initial fee and then a rate. And the rate is that 10 cents. Is that what it's supposed to be? Price per minute, 10 cents per minute. The initial cost, what did they say, of renting the computer, using the computer? Yes, is $9. So, in the context of the problem, it means Nathaniel has a initial charge to use the computer of $9. Like, technically, according to this formula, this function, if he used it for 0 minutes, he's still going to pay $9 to hold the computer for 0 minutes. So $9 to rent the computer at the internet cafe, and then 10 cents per minute from there. So the y-intercept would be 9, and then it would have a slope of 10 cents. And so his initial charge, $9. All right, so I hope that is helpful to you. We are also going to navigate over to Delta Math, and I'm going to look over some of your review questions just so you feel confident in that. So on your Delta Math review for this week, here are some of the questions that are open-ended. This is number 27 from your review. Connor determines the slope between -2, 4, and 3, -3 by calculating 4 minus -3 over -2, -3. April determines the slope by calculating it a little bit different. Whose reasoning is correct? So let's see. This was X and Y, X and Y. These are first and second. What did Connor do? Let's see. He's got a Y value. It's actually his Y1, subtracting with his Y2. And then he's got his X's and X2. Okay. April, let me switch colors, did +3, that's an X, minus -2, that's an X, over -3Y and minus 4Y. And these were what? 2 minus 1, 2 minus 1. Okay, so who is correct here? I wanted to talk about this with you because Connor is okay. So we do get hung up a lot on the formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. It really doesn't matter. As long as you are going in the same order. And so that's why on April's, I was like, hold on, let me label it just in case she really mixed them up. So meaning you can't do y1 minus y2 and then do x2 minus x1. You got to go in the same order. But you could do your first ordered pair minus your second, as long as your y's are always on top and your order is always the same. So if you really weren't sure on this question and you were working it on your own, what would you do? What could you do? You could find your own slope and then simplify Connor's and April's and see who got the same thing. So if you want to add that in your explanation, you could do that. You could say, you could explain Connor's formula is equivalent. And you could say, I found the slope using y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I got the same value. April got big hot mess and it's totally wrong. So there's how you can do number 27 from the review that may be on your quiz. Number 28 from your review that may be on your quiz says Simone claims the slope of the line through -2, 7 and 3, 0 is the same as the slope of the line through 2, 1 and 12, -13. Prove or disprove her claim. So let's just see what those slopes are. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Careful with those negatives. -7 over a 5. All right, let's switch and do this one. xy, xy. y2 minus y1 over x2. I think my 2 got hidden there. Minus x1. That's -14 over 10, which would reduce to -7 over 5. So yeah, I did get the same slopes. The second one had to be reduced. But yeah, they had the same slopes. Now, it doesn't mean they're the same line. She only claimed that the slopes are the same, so we're good. But it's not the same line necessarily. It could be. I don't know. but they are at least the same slope. So they're at least parallel if they're not the same line. I don't think they would be the same line, but they are at least parallel. They have the same steepness. But what did I do there? I just found the slopes of each and saw what they were and that they were the same. And so, yes, they do have the same slope. Number 29, how can you tell from a graph? How can you tell from a graph if the slope of the line is positive or negative? I would say a positive line goes up from left to right. And that's a big deal for some students. Like they have trouble reading a line from left to right, but it's same as reading a book or a sentence. We go from left to right. As long as it's going up from left to right, negative would be going down from left to right, just by looking at the graph. That's all that's asking. How would you just look at a graph and know? You don't have to get into count the rise over the run and it would simplify to a positive or simplify to a negative. You don't have to get into that. You could just say, if you look at the line, I would emphasize from left to right if it is going upward or up to the right. And then if you look at a negative graph from left to right, it's going down to the right. Number 30, describe a line having undefined slope. Do you remember this one? Undefined is going to be straight up and down. My memory tool is that up and down line can be the tail of my U for undefined. So you're talking about a vertical line. Vertical lines are up and down. Why is the slope undefined? Well, when you're doing rise over run, it's going to rise some infinite amount of values or go down if you want to count it that way. But it doesn't go side to side. It does not run at all. And so you cannot divide by 0. If you put it in your calculator, you're going to get an error message. You can't divide by 0. Why can't we divide by 0? But why? Well, I always use the illustration of Halloween candy. If I have a big pile of Halloween candy, that's the main group that I'm going to divide by 0. I've got a big pile of Halloween candy and I'm going to divide it in the floor or on the kitchen table into 0 groups. Not one big pile group, not 2 groups. I'm going to make 0 groups. That doesn't make sense. It just like is inconceivable. It doesn't work. I can make 1 pile of Halloween candy. I can make 2, but 0, it's not. Anyway, so you can't divide by 0. A vertical line has undefined slope because it ends up dividing by 0. All right, so I hope that you find that helpful, the bell ringer, going over those review questions. Make sure you've watched this in full, and that'll be part of your attendance for today. And I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you later. Bye.